So welcome to the second lesson that we are doing in this series of being able to navigate these uncertain times that we're all in. And in the last lesson, we looked at navigating our minds. We looked at being able to tap into our own inner wisdom and shift our perspective on how we are responding in our mental dialogue to what's going on. And this lesson is all about working with the emotions, because when we think certain thoughts, we begin to feel certain things in response to those thoughts. And oftentimes when we're worrying, we're going to start feeling anxious and worried and panicky. And today what I want to share with you is how we can be with whatever's coming up for us emotionally in a way that allows that emotion to pass through us without getting caught up in a spiral or a cycle where that emotion gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where you might feel paralyzed with fear or anxiety. Because when emotions come up, it is just like energy, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today through a video and an audio where you can learn to be with whatever emotional experience is coming up for you in a way that doesn't feel like it's hijacking you or it's overpowering you. So I'm really excited to share that with you today. I really want to introduce this concept of being with our emotions. So you may notice when you're feeling quite anxious or stressed that maybe it's difficult to actually be with those emotions, and you want to really run away, escape, numb them out, push against them, resist them, which is all very normal and natural. But what often happens is that in the long term, those emotions never fully get felt. They never get fully expressed. And we do a lot of repressing of those emotions where we push them down and we try to avoid them. And today, I really want to talk about this aspect of being mindful of our emotions and really stepping into the space of accepting them, seeing them as teachers, seeing them as a source of being able to be compassionate with ourselves when we're feeling negative emotions, and also to create some room and some safety for those emotions to be there. Because in the process of doing that, what begins to happen is those emotions actually have room to be felt, to be heard, to be acknowledged. And by doing that, they're able to actually move through you and to be released. And then through that releasing, something new begins to emerge. That emotion no longer sits within you. I know for myself, I've definitely had moments as well when it's been difficult to sometimes sit with a painful emotion, and you want to run away and you want to escape, or you want to push it down and actually not feel it. But here's something to really consider, which is what happens when we tend to push things and kind of hold them in, is that it takes a lot of energy to actually push our emotions down and to keep them in this place where we don't want to feel them. And if you think about how much energy it takes to sort of push things down and to not actually let them come out and be felt, imagine what would happen if you actually allowed that emotion to come through you, and then you free up that energy that you use to push something down. You can use that energy for so many other things in your life because you're no longer using it to hold something down. So here's another example of what happens when we actually try to resist and push against a really negative emotion that we don't want to feel. So I've got my friend Julie here, who's going to help with giving this visual representation of resistance to feeling what we're wanting to feel. So Julie, is there a particular emotion that you find at times you may feel that is difficult to be with, that you don't want to actually feel and you want to push against it and not feel it? Anger. Yeah. Okay. So anger is a very common emotion, and again, it might be anxiety, it might be fear, it might be panic for you. So just think of what is that emotion that you really don't want to feel, that you find that you really, really struggle with. We're going to use anger, but consider any other one for yourself. And I want you to think of it as like, we're going to think of this as like a clipboard. It's there, so you're feeling this anger, this is the clipboard, and now you don't want this to be there. So I want you just to push against the clipboard, and I want you just to notice what happens when you push against it. Does it actually go away?
No, I feel resistance.
You feel resistance, so it's pushing back, isn't it? The more you push against it, the more that it pushes back. What's happening to your arms as you're pushing against it?
It just, I feel tired and it's painful and it's kind of exhausting, really.
Yes. So now you're in the struggle.
Yes.
Where you are actually not only feeling the anger, but now you're feeling this secondary distress of fighting against it. And it doesn't feel good because now there's a secondary struggle that happens.
Yeah, I feel tired now from that anger.
Yes. It's overwhelming, it's exhausting, isn't it? So just begin to let go of pushing against it. So if you just take your hands away from it slowly, what begins to happen? What do you feel?
I just feel a relief.
Relief.
Yeah.
And does the anger go away completely?
Oh, it's still here.
It's still here, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is that when you don't push against it and you're just noticing that it's there isn't this secondary pain that you're feeling or a secondary struggle.
It's not extra pressure that I'm creating for myself when I'm resisting against it. Yeah,
Yes.
I can see that.
Yes, so you're just noticing it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that we want to share with you is like when we really resist what's there, we create a secondary struggle and a pain that happens in our resistance. So this could be feeling upset that you're upset, or feeling angry that you're feeling fearful about something, or it could be, like you were feeling quite exhausted that you're feeling this anger. And we don't recognize often that we're doing this. It's kind of like you could wake up in the morning, you could feel the stress or anxiety of something that you're afraid of, and then immediately there's a secondary emotion of, I don't want to feel this is awful, I want to get rid of this, and now you've got a secondary emotion that builds up, which is kind of this like, it doesn't feel good, it's a resistance, it's a struggle.
It's a struggle, I would say. It's a struggle. That's why so many people struggling with their emotions. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you just let go of that, as you did, and you start to just notice what's there without actually pushing against it, you're allowing that thing to be there without creating that secondary resistance to it. So that's a really important concept just to understand as we're learning to be with our emotions. And here's another thing to consider when it comes to wanting to run away from our emotions, not feel them, push them away, is that when we do that, when we want to not actually be with those emotions, and we want to numb them out, we want to run away. So an example could be, I don't want to feel this fear that's coming up for me at this very moment. So what I do is I distract myself. I go and I, just turn towards food, or I turn towards social media, or maybe I turn towards alcohol, or maybe I just put on the TV and I just watch something that's going to take me away from whatever it is that actually is there that needs to be felt. So when we do that, we're not allowing ourselves to feel what needs to be felt, and if we're not allowing ourselves to feel the negative emotions, then we're not also going to allow ourselves to fully feel the positive emotions that inherently are part of the human experience. So this is a really important concept just to think about, is that when we numb something out, when we numb out a particular emotion or run away or escape from it, even if it's a negative emotion, it kind of creates this pattern or this habit where we tend to not feel anything anymore in life. We almost become like these, autopilot robots where emotion just doesn't seem to be something that we allow ourselves to feel. So if you really want to feel the positive emotions, the highs, like feeling really deep love, feeling really deep appreciation, joy, bliss, happiness, you've got to allow yourself to also feel the negative emotions. Because when you allow yourself to feel everything, you're really allowing emotions to be a part of your human experience. And what I see a lot with a lot of the clients that I work with, and even within myself earlier on, when I was starting my own journey of personal growth, is that we're so afraid to feel our emotions. We're scared of somehow maybe thinking that we're not going to be able to cope, or that they're going to be too overwhelming. And the fact of the matter is, they're just emotions. They're just energy that's passing through us, and we don't have to really be afraid of them. If you think of your emotion like a wave that is actually gonna come, it's gonna, you can't resist it, you can't fight it, you just have to ride the wave until it gets to the shore. Then when it gets to the shore, it's gonna eventually crash, and it's going to pass, and there's going to be a new wave that comes up, a new emotional experience that will come up afterwards. So keep in mind that metaphor of emotions being transient, being changing, just like different waves. If you watch an ocean come up and then they crash on the shore, or different weather patterns that come up, some days you can go through observing nature and seeing that it's sunny, then it turns cloudy, then there's a storm, then after the storm, again, there's a clearing. Emotions are very similar. So when we begin to really understand that emotions are nothing to be afraid of, and that we can be with our emotions, we begin to access this place of acceptance, of radical acceptance, of being with whatever wants to come through us. And in that process, we don't end up creating more distress and more resistance by repressing things, trying to push them down, or trying to run away and numb out.
So now that you've learned about mindfulness, particularly mindfulness of emotions and what that is, we're going to do a little audio now where you're going to be able to actually implement the concepts in the video in an exercise that's going to allow you to really learn how to be with whatever emotional experience you're feeling right now.